Welcome back to Pure Pathways. Close your eyes for a minute. I want you to imagine a scene with me. Imagine that there's a young girl and she's walking on a long pathway, and that pathway has many doors. The girl gets curious. She wants to open the doors and see what's on the other side. But she hears a voice calling out to her, "Don't open the doors. Look straight ahead and keep walking to your destination." That pathway is this life. And at the end of that path is Jannah. Those doors, those are the limits, the prohibitions, the haram. If she had gone through those doors would have led her away from the right path and away from Jannah. And that voice that she heard is the Quran, calling her to the straight path, as-sirat al-mustaqim. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بسم الله. So here we are at the end of our journey with the Quran series. We started off by describing the world before Islam came, and we moved on to the revelation of the Quran and how it was collected into a book. And we talked about some of the ways in which the Quran is a miracle. Today, we're going to discuss the benefits of the Quran. How does the Quran help us both in this life and in the next? The Quran is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking directly to you and I. Do you think if someone wanted to talk to a king or a president or someone very important, that they could just pick up the phone and do that? Even presidents of companies have secretaries who answer their phones and make their appointments for them. Do you think that anyone very important would really care enough to talk directly to everyday people like us? Can you just pick up the phone and talk to a celebrity? They don't have time for you. And let's be honest, they don't really care because you're nobody to them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's the king of the entire universe, He cares enough about each and every single one of us that He left His words for us to read. The Quran is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking to us. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, hold on to the Quran, for you will not be misguided. So obviously, Quran is our guide. And you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you and gave you everything that you need to survive. He gave you food to eat, water to drink, air to breathe, and shelter to protect you from the elements. But those are all physical things. Those are needs for your body. But you and I, we're not just a body, we're also a soul. And because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows His creation, He knows the right directions that you need in order to live your life in the best way. If you follow those rules, then you'll not only keep your body healthy, but you'll also keep your soul healthy. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us those rules, how come we don't trust Him? How come we don't believe that those rules are actually good for us? I want you to think of this. If you had to go in for surgery, wouldn't you trust the surgeon to cure you? When you're sick and you go to a doctor and the doctor tells you, you need to take this medicine to get better, do you correct him or do you follow his prescription? When you ride on an airplane, don't you trust the pilot to get you safely to your destination? Or do you sit next to him in the cockpit and argue with him about how to properly fly the plane? I hope not, because you don't know what you're talking about and he's the expert. So you trust the experts. It's common sense, right? Just like the principal makes rules for her school, and the teacher makes rules for her classroom, and your parents make rules for the home, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes rules for His creation that live on His earth. And sometimes you and I, we don't like the rules. But deep down inside, we have to admit, we know that they're good for us. Your parents, they don't restrict you from watching too much TV or force you to do your homework because they hate you. The principal doesn't yell at you when you run in the hallways because she's mean. The police officer doesn't pull your mom over when she's speeding just because he's in a bad mood. Those rules, they're there to protect you and they're there for your benefit, even though you may not see it at the moment. So the Quran is our manual for life, and it covers everything we need in order to live a happy and healthy life. In it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us a complete way of life, all the aspects that we face on a day-to-day basis. The Quran discusses topics like education, and we talked about this when we learned about the first ayat that were revealed from Surah Al-Alaq. The Quran talks about mental health. For example, how being grateful and focusing on our blessings and controlling our anger, forgiving others, showing humility, how they all have a positive impact on our mental well-being. The Quran teaches us how to build healthy societies by discussing topics like our responsibility towards our parents, towards our relatives, our neighbors, the poor. The Quran even talks about marriage and divorce and how to interact with one another in the marketplace. The Quran even teaches us about our responsibility towards the environment and the animals around us. The Quran discusses social issues like brotherhood, justice, and modesty. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave women their rights and He preached anti-racism. The Quran celebrates our diversity by emphasizing that we are all equal in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many ayat that speak about social interactions and diseases of the hearts, the ill effects of being greedy, spying on one another, cheating each other, backbiting, lying, spreading rumors, being arrogant, or even harboring hatred for each other in our hearts. The Quran teaches us how to care for our own bodies too, by teaching us to avoid certain actions that can harm us, like drinking alcohol, taking drugs, and eating things that are unhealthy. We're even told in the Quran to eat and drink in moderation. I mean, who would have thought that the Quran discussed things other than praying and fasting and heaven and hell? It even talks about what happens to us after we die, and that's because we have to take responsibility for our actions. When you recognize there's a day of judgment and you're going to be held accountable, you're going to act differently when you're on earth. Now imagine if on the first day of school, the teacher tells the entire class, this year there will be no rules. You can do whatever you want and you won't get in trouble. You will never have any tests, projects, homework, assignments, or even grades. Now hold on, I know what you're thinking. Ooh, this sounds like so much fun. But think about it for real. Would you ever study? Probably not. Would you concentrate in class? I doubt it. Would you learn anything at all? Would there maybe be kids throwing things in class, standing on the desks, maybe sitting on their phones, ending up hurting themselves and each other? It would definitely be crazy. Why? Because everyone knows that there won't be any good or bad consequences at the end of the year. So they're not going to care. It's the same thing with our lives. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't explain the rules and the rewards and the punishments, then there would be a lot of chaos on earth. So now here's the thing. Even though we know that the Quran covers everything from A to Z, sometimes we still look for happiness in the wrong places. Some people look to be beautiful to be happy. So once I'm the most beautiful, then I'll be happy. Some people look to money. Once I have a lot of money, that's when I'll be happy. Some people look to entertainment. Well, if I have a lot of fun, I go from party to party, a bunch of hangouts, watch movies, play video games, then I'm going to be happy. Some people look to power, when I'm the leader, when people listen to me, when people fear me, then I'll be happy. Fame, when I'm the most popular, I get the most likes on my Instagram pictures and the most followers on my Snapchat, then I'll be happy. We know those things alone cannot bring happiness. The news is filled with stories about the most beautiful, famous, rich people who seem like they have everything, but they're struggling with depression, with alcohol abuse, drug addiction, gambling, and in some cases they end up committing suicide. So we have to ask ourselves, if beauty and money and fame bring happiness, then why are so many people falling into depression and taking their own lives? Let's look at this example to help us find the answer. Imagine that I'm feeling hungry. So I walk into the kitchen and I open the fridge. In there, I find a moldy piece of meat, a few pieces of rotten fruit, and a gallon of expired milk. So I take them out and I have lunch. Well, I don't have to tell you what would happen next. Obviously, feeding our bodies the wrong foods will cause our bodies to get sick. And in the same way, feeding our souls the wrong kinds of things will also cause our souls to get sick. So the Quran teaches us exactly what our souls need to stay healthy. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compares the Quran to rain. Because rain comes down on a dead land and it brings life from it. And in the same way, the Quran comes down onto our dead hearts, our empty hearts, and it brings life to them. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that there is a void in the heart that cannot be filled except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created your body and He created your soul. So who else is going to be able to tell you the best way to take care of them? Nobody. So the benefits of the Quran don't end with our lives. They follow us even after we die. On the Day of Judgment, the Quran testifies for us. It pulls us towards Jannah and away from Jahannam, kind of like a VIP pass. The person who is a companion of the Quran, who acts on it, who reads it, they will be brought on the Day of Judgment and told to recite and go higher. Iqra wartaqi, read and go higher, read and go higher. And so you continue being lifted into the highest levels of Jannah for every ayah that you read. Here's a hadith, and let's see if you can fill in the blank. The Prophet ﷺ taught us, the best among you are those who, fill in the blank. The richest? Have the best degrees? The best one is the most beautiful, popular? Obviously, it's not any one of those, right? What about the one who prays the most? Fasts the most? Not that either. The best among you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. So now if you're thinking, oh man, so I have to be like a Quran teacher to be the best? I can barely read Quran myself. I'm already struggling. No, teaching the Quran can be teaching one ayah to someone, to anyone. I mean, if you just taught your younger sibling a short surah, that's good. Or if you taught a friend that something is haram because the Quran says so, that's great. It can be that simple. And as for you feeling sorry for yourself because Quran is hard for you and you have a hard time reading it, or you use that as an excuse not to learn it, well, what if I told you that the Prophet ﷺ told us that you will be getting double the reward than the person who reads Quran and it's easy for them? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of you for every letter that you read from the Quran and for every lesson that you teach someone from the Quran. So here we are, we've come to the end of our Journey with the Quran series. I hope that you have all benefited. I know that I've benefited so much from being with you. Let me know what other topics you're interested in discussing so that I can work on them for the future episodes. I hope to see you again soon. May all your pathways be pure. Assalamu alaikum.